All right. Hello, world. Welcome back to the Resistance Podcast. My name is Connor.
And I'm Thurston.
And we are your hosts.
Yep.
What's up, Thurston?
All good. All good.
All good?
Yeah, we're off to interesting start of 2024.
Any significant life changes in the last couple weeks?
Assuming you're referring to my birthday.
That's correct.
So hit the big...
How young are you now, Thurston?
Yeah, I hit the big 50.
50.
So the golden number apparently is the 50s. So yeah, that just happened. What is the date? 1 week ago today.
All right.
So
you're wearing it well, looking good.
Yeah, feeling pretty good. I made it this far. Hopefully, much more to go, but so far so good.
Another 50 maybe.
We'll see.
All right.
Aspirationally, let's go for that one. Yeah.
Well, it's perfect because today we're going to talk about longevity, health span, all that kind of stuff. So it's nice to have, access to a senior citizen. No, how about someone with years of wisdom and knowledge in the fitness industry who is now 50? Great reframe. So folks, we're going to talk about health span, lifespan. We'll probably talk a little bit about Outlive, Peter Attia's book, reference some things in there. And we're just going to talk about aging and how do we combat that,
Sure.
Some anti-aging protocols. So buckle up and we'll have some exciting stuff for you guys. Thurston, why don't we just start off with your own experience? You've been working in the fitness and health industry for a long time, and you're 50 years old now. You're in great shape. You look great, but also you're metabolically healthy, and all the internal stuff is going great. So can you just kind of tell us a little bit of what your experience has been and what works for you?
Sure. Yeah. So I started literally 30 years ago when I got into health and fitness, and as you know, or people that have been listening to our other podcasts will know, we're big into resistance training and eating healthy, all that kind of, we obviously can go into details. So, but yeah, my background would be, 20, I kind of did a big jump from Ireland, by the way, if people don't understand the accent. Which
is not British, by the way.
Yes.
The big correction on that one earlier.
Exactly, yep. So I was working in a bar when I left school. I was in college until I dropped out, and then I went from one extreme to the other because I was working in a bar.
Not the healthiest lifestyle.
Yeah, working in a bar, drinking a lot, even smoked at the time.
Ripping heaters.
And then I worked in the health and fitness industry. So yeah, I went from one extreme to the other. Funnily enough, while I was working in the bar, that's when I joined the gym and started eating healthy and working out.
What made you want to start working out? What was the catalyst?
Well, back then when you're 20, I'm sure vanity had a lot to do with it.
I was going to say there must have been a girl.
So, well, it's funny because I was working as a bar back at the time. So you're not quite a barman, so you're sort of supporting the bar staff or bar person. And so I would restock the shelves, and a lot of the girls were nicer to me, but the guys would be pushing me around a lot, kind of throwing their weight around, and I was fed up with that. And
the Ben
not
Kohlers
in a
of the
malicious
world.
way. Now this was just sort of a busy bar, and little bit of that. So I said, I got to get a little stronger here, grow some muscles, and jumped in, started working out in the gym, and the manager at the time, Tom, put me on this crazy diet, high protein diet, and I bulked up. I think I put on, let's see what it was, because we have what was called a stone, which is 14 pounds. So I put on 2 stone in 6 weeks, which is 28 pounds. Yeah, the stone is 14 pounds, so that's what we say back in Ireland. Although now it's all kgs and stuff. So interesting. But back then, you'd say, I'm whatever, 11 stone, 12 stone in weight. So so that's what got me started. I never looked back since, so I kept at it. And what's interesting is I probably work out a lot less than even the average client that we have here.
Yeah.
So my workouts are really short. I work out doing resistance training on average about 12, 13-minute workouts. And I do that 2 to 3 times a week.
And how long have you been doing that? When did you get all like on the train for like the high intensity stuff?
Oh, it was in my early 20s. Yeah, we started doing these 20-minute workouts. Yeah, way back when I was about 23, 24, I think. Could have even been earlier.
Wow.
See, at my age, my memory may not be 100%. I'm joking.
Yeah, we don't have any fixes for that.
Well,
some mushrooms. No, we actually do.
Yeah, we could have. There's a lot of things you can do for sure for your memory and stuff. But anyway,
we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. So started, back then. So been pretty much doing it most of my life. So I don't work out a lot because most people think, oh, you're in the industry, you must work out hours every day in the gym. And that's definitely not the case.
Yeah.
And other than that, I just eat what I think is a reasonably healthy diet. I mean, look, I've tried everything you can possibly imagine.
Of course.
You name that diet, I've tried it. Everything from fruit fasting to keto. I did keto for quite a while.
Yep, I remember
low
that.
Carb. I've tried, alkaline diets. I've tried. Probably the most extreme was the raw. Like when I say a raw diet, most people think of a raw vegetables and stuff.
Raw vegan.
This was raw meat.
Oh,
raw,
good. Liver
King.
Now,
by the way,
you're the original Liver King.
Yeah,
dude.
Full disclosure: we're not recommending this. This is all educational and entertainment purposes.
You were basically a guinea pig for a few years.
But I did I remember one solid year. I did it for a few years, but one solid year, I literally did not eat a cooked piece of food for a solid year.
Sounds horrible. Yeah. That's no way to live.
I actually thought it was pretty cool at the time. It was, I'm pretty, I don't mind. I'll try anything if I think there's something in it. So, yeah, this was raw dairy, raw eggs, raw meat, raw fish, raw everything, which sounds absolutely crazy.
It does. It does sound that way.
But there was this little place in Venice here in LA called Rossum. They were shut down. It's kind of funny. I'm sure you could find these old videos on YouTube where
is this where you're getting your raw meat from?
All the FBI and all these people to shut them down because they were selling raw dairy, or I don't know, maybe there was something else.
California actually has very strict dairy laws.
Yeah. Now, funny enough, you can get raw dairy in California, but anyway, I don't know what the thing was at the time.
We'll talk about California policies another episode. Yeah.
Sure. But
sting operations on dairy facilities.
But that was definitely the most extreme diet that I did, completely raw.
Let's take it back for a second. Let's isolate the resistance training variable, and let's get into a little bit of obviously the resistance training has a huge part in where you are now today.
Yeah.
Let's talk about why. So if you could maybe just explain the role the metabolism has. Oh, bumped my mic. The role the metabolism has in our aging, and how resistance training can help. And then also even let's talk about the different types of muscle fibers and which ones we lose over time and stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's a brilliant place to start because I would probably pick this out as the biggest variable when it comes to aging, longevity, health span, and quality of life. Because when you look at aging, one of the main aspects is as we age, we lose muscle.
Mm-hmm.
So even from the age of 30, we start to lose anywhere between 3 to 8% of our muscle mass every decade. And then that starts to accelerate. And from the age of about 50, which is what I am, then you start to lose muscle at 1% a year. And not only that, but then 3% of your strength and 8% of your power. So the muscle mass is important for sure, but more importantly is the strength. So, and that really dictates the quality of your muscle.
Right.
Because not many people know this, but you can have less muscle and be stronger.
Right.
If you've better quality muscle.
Quality muscle, yeah.
And power just brings in the element of speed, that explosiveness.
Mm-hmm.
So, and most people will, sure, in my 20s I have more explosiveness, more power, more strength, and more muscle mass. And then as you age, all these things diminish. So that is largely, and they call this sarcopenia.
Mm-hmm.
And sarcopenia is just the loss of muscle tissue. So that is a huge problem with when it comes to aging and your metabolic health and your quality of life.
Yeah, well, tell me why can't I just go on a walk or get on the elliptical and do some cardiovascular training to maintain? Because isn't it all just hitting muscle? What's the difference, and why specifically resistance training?
So again, from a longevity perspective, when you lose the type of muscle tissue that you lose is what's called fast twitch or type 2.
Yeah.
So when they look at somebody in their 70s, 80s and beyond, they actually maintain their type 1 muscle, which is the slow twitch.
Very well, yeah.
Very effectively.
Yeah, I think that's very important to talk about. Yeah.
And that's one of the, I think that's where if people got nothing else and got this point and really understood this from this podcast, I think that would be huge.
Yeah.
So if you understand that when you age and you lose your muscle, it's not the type 1, which is from aerobics. And I'm not saying, by the way, and we could talk further about
very
this.
important.
Very important.
Yes.
Absolutely. But from an aging perspective, you can do hours and hours of cardio and you will get health benefits from that, but that will absolutely not
help
stop
you maintain
the loss or maintain your strength or muscle mass.
Yeah.
So that's very important. So resistance training is at least, and I would argue more important, but obviously I think you should do both. But at very least, you could say it's equally important as cardiovascular
Absolutely.
exercise or aerobics. So for sure, strength training is imperative if you want to have a good quality of life and live longer.
Yeah, so at the point where we start to naturally lose the fast twitch muscle fiber, how much resistance training do we need to put into our schedule to maintain what we have? Is it okay, just to go on a maintenance kind of exercise regime where you're hitting every muscle group once a week just to keep it, or do you have to up your level over time to compensate for the decline?
Yeah, okay, very good question. So for sure, so there's two components, and we're talking about exercise, but of course the nutrition and protein intake is also important. And both of those things, for sure, your requirements as you age increases. So, for instance, somebody in their 60s requires more protein intake than someone in their 20s. And that's been shown in studies and research. And now when it comes to the exercise, I haven't seen as much. I'm sure there is. I haven't looked as much. So you definitely need a stimulus. So, well, let's go back to the basics of the question. Okay, how much do you need to work out to maintain your muscle mass? I would think hitting each body part once a week. So you could do it in one workout.
It's like one big full body workout.
Yeah. And it wouldn't even have to be that big. I mean, you could do a workout.
Oh, sure. Yeah, big
20
is relative.
to 30 minutes. And of course, if you're smart about it and you do the right type,
get your cardio at the same time.
Well, yeah, but even other than that, and I think we covered this in the very first podcast on eccentric training. And we'll talk a little bit further about that. But so some types of resistance training for sure is more effective than others. So the quality of the workout comes in. But if you get a good quality workout in, I think one 30-minute workout a week could do it for most people.
That's
to
great.
Maintain their muscle mass very effectively throughout their lives.
Yeah, I think that shift is really important for your diet and for fitness. It's like, okay, realizing that naturally you're just going to start to lose your fast twitch muscle fiber. So it's like prioritizing keeping it or growing it, with maintaining and eating a good amount of protein, getting your resistance training. I mean, that's huge. And then even let's talk a little bit about the eccentric training, because as we know, when you get above the age of 70, I think Peter Attia outlines it in his book, but isn't it if you fall and break a bone over the age of 70, I think there's like a 30% chance of dying within 2 to 3 years?
Then 12 months, yeah.
12 months, okay, even more dramatic. So can we just talk a little bit about eccentric training and how that can translate into maybe bracing for a fall, being able to control your body, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So just just to clarify eccentric. So eccentric is otherwise called the negative. So everyone thinks of lifting weights, but it's actually the lowering phase so imagine you're just like doing a bicep curl, or you're just lifting a box or anything. You're lifting it with your hands, and it's the elbow joint that's flexing. So as you lift something, that's called concentric. So if you visualize your muscle as you lift something, the muscle gets shorter, and then as you lower like a box or a weight or whatever, that's the muscle is lengthening.
Right.
And it's the lengthening phase that's, first of all, way more effective. That's actually what causes the muscle to get stronger. It's that part of the motion that's way more effective than the concentric.
And that
phase.
strength translates to lifting and lowering, which is great.
Yeah, it's great, because when you strengthen on that, then it also makes the concentric stronger. But so going back to your point, particularly when it comes to aging and longevity and mobility and preventing yourself from falls, the negative or the eccentric makes more sense, because if you say you trip and you put your foot out to brace yourself,
right,
that's an eccentric movement.
Yeah, even stepping off of a curb.
Exactly. Yeah.
Going down the stairs.
Or you put your hands out
to catch
brace
yourself.
So if you think of like an easy way to visualize this for those that are just listening, it's if you do a push-up. So you're pushing yourself up off the ground. Again, that's the concentric phase.
Pushing away.
Yeah, pushing away. But if you imagine you fall on your hands, and then your hands
bend and you're lowering towards the ground.
You're lowering towards the ground. Yeah, exactly. That's the negative or the eccentric phase. So obviously, if you strengthen that eccentric phase on the body, then you're going to be much stronger, and your brakes essentially are going to be way better, and you're more likely to be able to prevent yourself from injuries, from falls, etc. So that's and that is huge. When you look at the data and stats, and if you talk to doctors,
it's crazy.
Anyone again over the age of 65, that's the biggest thing that's going to impact your quality of life. Is if you have a fall and a bad injury, that can be really serious.
And not to mention too, I mean, let's talk about the effects of resistance training on bone density and fighting against osteoporosis and stuff, while we're talking about falls.
Yeah, for sure. Because again, resistance training super effective for maintaining bone density, and can be used as a tool. So if you do have osteoporosis, again, check with your doctor, but I'm sure they will recommend or at least agree that resistance training is going to be very effective as part of a treatment to improve your bone density. I always think of astronauts. It used to be a serious issue, and these are obviously super fit people going up into space.
Super capable.
And when they go up to the space station, they stay there for a while. They used to come, I'm sure they've counteracted this with some sort of exercise.
Elon gave them something.
They used to come back with osteoporosis, and these are young, healthy astronauts. So you need that compression, that resistance onto the body to maintain or to increase bone density for sure.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, while we're here, I don't just want to do an episode pitching resistance training, because I know we talk about it a lot, but it's a huge topic and it's very important with longevity. Can you talk about a little bit about the cognitive effects of resistance training, how that impacts the brain and the mental health, and because cognitive health and decline is a huge part of aging.
Yeah.
And we can come at that from a different angle later with supplementation and stuff.
Yeah, because there's going to be multiple levels of that. So for the brain, when it comes to exercise, now this can apply equally to resistance training or cardio/aerobics, but really it comes down to the intensity of the workout for the brain in particular. So I could be wrong. Maybe there's some other unique aspects of resistance training that can help with the brain. But my main thing that I always jump to is what's called BDNF. So it's a hormone, brain-derived neurotropic factor. And that is incredible. Like, it's literally called Miracle-Gro for the brain. In fact, I've got that book here on the shelf called Spark. And that's John Rady. I don't know if it's Rady or Roddy, but it's a brilliant book. But he
Rady's
talks
better.
all about, that whole book is exercise and the brain. And he goes through everything, all the different aspects of how it improves the brain. But the intensity of the exercise can jump up BDNF considerably. So if you do a low intensity workout, even for 45 minutes, in the research, you only increase BDNF like 1%. Do medium intensity, and even for less time, 35 minutes, it increases BDNF 7%.
Yeah, wow.
And then if you do 25 minutes, again, almost half of the first group, but at high intensity, BDNF is 19%. It's almost 20%.
Yeah, that's major.
Which is huge. And that's resting levels after you work out like that for a while. So that's pretty impressive. So that is going to improve every cognitive function throughout, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, yeah, let's put a pin in that right for now, just so we don't get stuck in resistance training the entire time. I think we can, got the point across. It's important. I kind of want to use Outlive as a little bit of a framework. Can you maybe, using that a little bit, just talk about what are some of the major issues with aging? What are the things that are killing people as you get older? Because I think if we can understand that a little bit, we can understand, how to combat it and where to come at it from.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've followed Peter Attia for, way back in the time he was joined with Gary Taubes and Nusi over 10 years ago. So he's awesome, and his book is fantastic. And that's something I just recommend anybody interested in longevity, anti-aging, get that book, Outlive. I think it's fantastic. And there's a lot of stuff he goes into that's beyond the scope of anything that I do. Because he's great in terms of getting in there, getting the right types of testing. So he will be big on things like ApoB for your cholesterol, a much better marker. He talks all about that, about early cancer screening. So if you think about it, what are the main things that people die from? Well, heart disease is number one on the list, and that's for everybody. But for sure, more so as you're aging. Number two is cancer. And then he also talks about blood sugar, so diabetes. And then dementia. So they're the four main things that we need to really concern ourselves about. So if you look at the risk factors of those four and obviously reduce those, which he goes into great depth on those, that's going to have a huge impact on your lifespan, health span, quality of life. So they're the four big things. And he really goes through those in details because the testing is important to really know where you're at. But his number one intervention of everything, and he goes through everything, by the way, medication, nutrition, everything, other lifestyle factors, but he always says exercise number one. And he's a big advocate of eccentric training. He talks about resistance training, mobility, and he's big into the zone 2, which is the sort of Maffetone style. True aerobics is what I call it. Getting that all the type 1 muscle fibers optimized for metabolic health. That's that's a good summary.
No, it's great. I one of the main things that sticks out to me from that book is switching the brain and getting people thinking about prevention versus just putting a Band-Aid on issues. Obviously, he gets into it. Like, there is a time and a place for medication, and it can be very important and helpful. But I think if we could help get people into that mind space of flipping and, hey, don't wait till you have the issue to start treating it and to start taking a pill. Why don't we start 10, 20, 30 years ahead of the curve and start living in a certain lifestyle and adding behaviors to avoid these things down the road? Because I think a lot of people just think that they're inevitable. They're like, when I get into my 50s, I'll have heart issues and I'll just, have to stay on top of it and look at it, and cholesterol, my blood sugar and all that, that's an issue, diabetes, what can you do? It's going to creep up on you like it does for everybody else. I think it's important to know that obviously there are genetic predispositions, but generally speaking, we can, start implementing things into our lives to avoid this.
Exactly.
Like we're saying with resistance training and everything else.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's funny, I think a lot about this. I often wonder, well, let's just say, obviously nobody lives till 200, but are certain things inevitable? And it's just a question of staving them off as long as possible.
Right.
And I suspect that is probably true.
Sure.
So if you look at everything, and this is sort of Peter Attia's sort of premise, is that theoretically or aspirationally, most people have the potential to live till about 100.
Yeah.
If they're healthy, if they're a little bit lucky on the genetic aspect.
Genetic lottery.
Or maybe they're just not unlucky, as another way of putting it, and they look after their metabolic health. Then I think most people could. I don't know what the numbers are now, but I think in obviously they have this big thing about blue zones and stuff like that. But I think in certain populations, the average age is well into the 80s. I think in this country it's dropped actually in the last
79.
And male, female is a little bit different. Yeah, it could be 77, 79. So I think, and that's the average person's not healthy, right? We're in a very unhealthy world, very unhealthy lifestyles, a lot of ultra-processed food, less exercise, and we're still making it to that. So I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say, well, aspirationally, you could probably hit 100.
Sure.
And Peter Attia's big point is you could do it in a healthy way, because a lot of people think about aging and longevity as, oh my gosh, well, at 80 I'm going to be barely able to walk. It's going to be terrible. And now another 20 years of that,
it's just surviving.
Yeah.
Versus, not to be cheesy, but thriving.
Exactly.
And having a healthy lifestyle. And,
yeah,
whatever that means to you. It could be being able to pick up a grandchild or go for a walk or,
Exactly, yeah. And he has all these metrics like that. Well, okay, if I'm in my 90s or in your last decade, well, you want to be able to go for a hike, you want to be able to play with your grandkids or whatever, and do specific things so that you have a good quality of life.
Exactly.
So that's a huge thing. So generally when you improve your health span improves. So in other words, it doesn't mean, like I said, with a lot of people think, oh, my health is going to decrease at 80, it's going to be really bad, and now you're going to add on another 20 years. No, thank you. A lot of people actually say that whenever I say, oh, wouldn't it be great? They're, oh,
no,
terrible.
Take me now. Yeah.
But if at 90 you are like someone else who's 50 or 60, then you think, okay, well, now it's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
And when the time comes, nobody's rushing to the grave. People always want an extra bit of time when it comes down to it. So I think to have a really good, fulfilling life to your full potential, that's the way I always see it. You want to be close to your potential for as long as possible. So, and I don't think there's trade-offs when it comes to this. So in other words, you can be super healthy and strong and fit, and it's not going to shorten your lifespan, right?
Right.
So what's great about this is that when you improved your quality of life, almost by default, you're going to extend your life. So the two go hand in hand, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I do think, well, look, if I had a choice, would I want to be super like energetic but only live till 50, or have hardly any energy and live till 100? Part of me would think, well, if I can be more productive and get more done and have an amazing life and die at 50, I'd probably choose that over living till 100 and
suffering
exactly
for 50 years. So brutal.
But the great thing when it comes to this is there's no trade-off. It's both go in the same direction, and that's, I think the average person just has no idea that they really do have incredible potential to have way more energy, focus, concentration, mobility than they realize. Because again, you have to remember we're in a very weird time in humanity when we've never been so unhealthy as a species. And that's something to really sort of wake up from. And I know I probably talked about this before, but because we're talking about aging, longevity, one thing I want to dispel is this myth that everyone just lived till 40 and died, and that's why we're having all these health issues. And
that has to do with disease and getting mauled by a bear.
Exactly. The
saber-toothed tiger just.
If you look at the causes of death a couple of hundred years ago and further back, a lot of it is infectious disease and accidents. Are big ones, but the biggest one is infant mortality. So infant mortality,
we've talked about that before on here.
That's what skews.
That's huge.
But because we're talking about aging and longevity, I think it's very important just to say that again in this topic is that when you take infant mortality into account, our life expectancy hasn't really changed much. So in other words, if you literally infant mortality was close to 50%, like it was 40-something%, couple of hundred years ago. So obviously, I mean, just to explain it super simply, 2 kids get born, and if one baby at birth or close to it dies, and the other one lives till 80, then obviously your average age is 40.
Yeah.
So that's where that 40 comes from.
Yeah.
So, because when they look at remote tribe civilizations that are healthy, they're all living until their 70s and 80s, just as much as modern day. Now, I'm not saying that there's not certain things that are fantastic, like in the medical field,
absolutely.
Like antibiotics and operations and stuff used in the right way.
To keep us going. Yeah, absolutely.
So fantastic.
Even a little bare aspirin,
Yeah. You get hit by a car or something and you break your leg.
Chances of recovery are you're probably not going to die of gangrene.
Exactly.
In a duel.
So that obviously has helped a lot. So, but just wanted to really get that point across, because a lot of people do think that, and they go, oh well, and then that's why they think, oh yeah, well it's just now that I'm in my 40s or 50s. That's why
they kind of have a defeatist mentality around it,
or all of these various different things.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about like the what and the why about aging. Let's get into a little bit more how. We did with the resistance training. What are some preventative things that you would recommend to people?
Okay.
So,
the 2 big ones that jump into my mind, because I like to just think, and I'll talk about other things as well, of course, but if I could just get these 2 messages out there that I think would have the biggest impact would be obviously the exercise, resistance training. Because most people do some form of cardio. I mean, most people walk, right?
Yeah.
Great.
At least a little.
Yeah, at least a little. And if you can jump up your steps from 3,000 or 4,000 up to 7,000, that's fantastic. That will have a big difference. And that could be very easily done. Just park a little further away from the store and, just get in some extra steps, go for a little walk in the morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever. So super easy to do. But then again, the resistance training, of course. So that's going to be, I'm always going to put that number 1.
Yeah.
But they're very closely followed by then increasing your protein intake.
Interesting.
Yeah, so protein, again, is crucial for all-around health.
And especially when paired with resistance training.
Exactly. The 2 go hand in hand for sure. But even protein intake on its own will have a great impact on overall health for sure. And that's
something we're doing here right now in the studio, is just trying to get all of our clients to increase their protein intake.
Yeah.
And seeing the results of just isolating that variable.
Yeah. And it's definitely going to be released soon. This has gone on longer than I thought, but I just want to get it right. But the protein program that we're working on is incredible.
Shameless plug.
Yeah. Well, I don't mind, because it really is going to make a difference from the.
It's our channel.
Yeah, but protein is just crucial. And again, as we age, our demand or need for protein increases. So that is absolutely vital. And protein as well is going to play a big role in terms of weight regulation. So if people are looking to lose weight, because obviously we have now it's close to 45% of people who are clinically obese. And when I started in this field 30 years ago, obesity was half that.
Wow.
So even in my just 30 years of being in the business, in my lifetime, it's even more. So that's huge. And now close to 70% are overweight. And that does impact health for sure. I mean, so there's different types of fat. Some fat is innocuous. If it's on the thighs or hips or whatever. But if it's fat, especially visceral and more accurately around the liver, that's a serious
non-alcoholic
issue.
Fatty liver.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's big time. So yeah, the two things is going to be resistance training and increasing protein intake.
That's great.
So if you could do nothing but just those two things, it would have an extraordinary impact.
You recommend getting
like
0.8 grams, 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Is that kind of what you shoot for, or what would you recommend in general?
So currently, I believe the RDA is 0.8 grams per kilogram.
Oh, that's actually less,
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because obviously they use kilograms, but most people in America, their weight is in pounds.
Like what the heck is a kilogram?
So, but the grams sort of make more sense because of the foods are generally 100 grams, whatever. So it's, anyway. So let's just say somebody's 150 pounds. So at the so the higher level would be a gram per pound. That would be, but that's quite high.
Yeah.
So if you're looking, and this is a big thing, and I know I'm jumping around the place here, but
all right.
There's a big difference between maintenance and if you want to create a change in the body.
Right.
And I think a lot of people confuse, because a lot of people say, oh, well, there's no point in going on a diet and that's sustainable. That's a very common thing. And I get that to a point, but I disagree from the point of view of you may not be at the level that you want to maintain.
Right.
So if you start off and you're not very healthy or strong and you don't have enough muscle, you've too much fat, well, maintaining that is not necessarily desirable. You may want to create a change first.
Yeah.
So you may have to go the extra mile.
Short period of time and upgrade a little bit.
Change the diet, be a bit more radical on the exercise and nutrition until you get to where you want to go.
And then maintain.
Then you can switch.
So I always, it's 0.8
like two gears. So you've got your sort of cruise control, just maintaining. You want to be, but then you want to go quickly, accelerate, and create a change. You need a lot more power. So that's, I would always look at it at those two. But for the protein recommendations, I think they're definitely on the low side, especially as you age, because we know our requirements for protein.
Yeah. As are a lot of these, recommendations, because a lot of them are just to keep the average populace alive, not necessarily into a thriving place.
They're generally not looking at optimal levels. They're generally looking at
optimal. That's such a better word. I've used thriving like 3 times, and I sound like a cheerleader or something. Thrive. I don't know. I don't like that word. Anyways.
Well, I mean,
tangent.
So
optimal.
Yeah. So optimal versus just scraping through and not getting a disease or whatever. So
non-thriving.
So when it comes to protein, I would definitely be recommending higher than that for the people that I work with and for myself. So I would generally be up around 0.6 grams per pound of body weight for maintenance. And then all the way up to a gram per pound if you want to see a change.
I like that.
Yeah, and that can be even for, regardless of whether you're looking to because even for weight loss, weirdly enough, I go for a lot more protein because it's more satiating.
Yep.
And by default, people will start to lose weight.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to overconsume protein.
Oh, you got to work hard.
Oh wow, yeah. You try consuming, because, I mean, if you chew through a pound of steak. I mean, that's a lot.
I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be testing that theory next week. It is my birthday next week, and I'm going to go to Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão.
All you can eat. Oh, yeah.
All you can eat. I'm gonna test the theory, and I'll report back. I'll let you know if I'm able to overeat.
Yeah.
Like red meat alone.
The ban people like us will go in.
I know. We put them out of business. That's the goal. We love them though. But yeah, that's great. I mean, also, what is it? 25% of the calories of protein that you eat that are consumed are used to break down the protein itself.
Yeah, the thermogenic effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So even if you ate, like, say you're 200 pounds, and even at the high level where you're going a gram per pound, so that's 200 grams of protein a day. Now that's a lot. Most people will find it hard to consume that amount. But even if you
have to really work, you have to go work hard.
But just to illustrate the point that you're talking about, so there's 4 calories per gram of carbs and protein, 9 for fat. So normally you would say, 200 grams of protein, you multiply that by 4, so that's 800 calories. But the thermogenic effect, quarter of those is used up. So now you're only talking about 600 calories for 200 grams of protein.
That's insane.
So, I mean, of course, you're going to have some type of carbs and fats with your protein.
Hopefully.
Depending on whether you're low carb, keto,
unless you're doing that carnivore diet.
Carb. Well, I mean, there'll be a lot of fat on the carnivore.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's a huge part of it. So yeah, it's incredibly difficult to overeat calories from protein. I mean, I've never seen anyone do it.
No.
Certainly by accident, I've never seen anybody do it. So I think that's worth noting. And in fact, you'll find it much easier to lose weight when you increase protein. There's been so many studies done with that. So when people increase their protein intake, one study comes to mind where they jumped up their protein from 15% to 30% of their diet. Now, without trying, so they weren't told to cut back on food. It was a good study.
Just increase protein.
Control group. Just say increase your protein intake. They consumed 441 less calories a day on average.
Wow.
And they lost 11 pounds in 12 weeks without trying. So that's pretty awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Eat your protein, folks.
Yeah.
Hey, let's talk about cardiovascular training for a minute. Because I think a lot of people are super concerned with it. And it has a place. It's very important. Especially, I think a lot of people have concerns around heart health, managing lipids, all that kind of stuff. So let's just talk about what you would recommend for general fitness and, preventing, some of these aging things that happen.
Yeah.
What would you program in for people? And why is it important? What are the effects,
Sure. I almost see this in reverse. So rather than actually looking at what should you do for exercise or what are the benefits of exercise, I almost see it as what are the detrimental effects of being stagnant, of not moving.
There you go.
Do you know what I mean?
So I think it's great.
But it actually makes more sense. So when the body is stagnant, it literally it collapses and dies. I mean, if you're and they've done quite a bit of studies on this because it's a big problem for people that have injuries or in hospital and they're bedridden. So if you're bedridden for a week or 10 days, when you look at the data and stats, it's horrific. So you're just literally lying up, you can't move.
No, it's awful.
And within a week to 10 days, you lose 30% of your strength. You lose a lot of muscle tissue. Your blood gets thicker and stickier. Not a good thing.
Anyone that's been in the hospital for a long time knows that. You've experienced it.
Yeah, everything. Depression rates go up. Your blood pressure increases. Your cholesterol increases. Everything just goes. So I always just think movement is life, stagnation is death. So that's the first thing I always think of is just don't be stagnant. And most people go, okay, well, I'm not bedridden, I'm fine. But when you look at the lifestyle today, a lot of people, they get up out of bed, they're sitting in the car, they're sitting eating their breakfast,
watching
they're
the news,
working,
watching TV, sitting.
Yeah, they get home, they sit down and watch TV. So they could be sitting for 15 hours.
Sit and watch someone else play sports. You know?
Yeah. So, and that's close to, and now there is actually good research to show that even people who are just sitting all the time, that they're still getting a lot of those negative effects from being bedridden. Not quite at the same rate, but it's noticeable. So that's the way I see it. I see it as like the body is designed to move. Mm-hmm. I always think of I don't know, my mind works weird, but I always think everything is moving. Like if you think of the universe, all these stars and planets,
atoms, and even, and everything's bouncing around.
Yeah. So movement is life, and everything is when it's
movement
moving,
is life.
If we stopped orbiting around the sun and the Earth stopped moving, the whole planet would collapse
Super
and
dead.
die. So
all
so
this
movement
makes me
is life.
all this makes me think about is I'm like and I'm like, oh God, we're just sitting here recording this. We should get like a little pedal bike or something.
Yeah.
Just keep moving.
Well, you can't see it now, but I even have like a little leaning stool at my desk.
Yeah.
So I don't like, because I just notice even
we'll start
just
doing these podcasts
walking
on a like a hiking trail.
Yeah. Well, I think we're pretty safe. I know
we're
about
okay.
you, but I think we pretty much get our steps in and all that kind of stuff. But and there are some numbers. So when they do the research on movement and steps, there are a couple of landmark numbers that if you're below 4,000 steps a day, that's where your health will suffer.
Yeah.
And then if you want to get to optimal,
10 to 20.
Well, actually, they found 7,000 being the number. But 10,000 is good because there's always outliers. And
I'm so disappointed with myself when I have like 7,500 steps for a day.
Yeah, no,
but that encourages me, Thurston. Yeah. I thought I had to get my 10.
Yeah, no, in the research, they didn't, marginally maybe.
My wife is going to love that.
The optimal is
she
around
loves
the
those steps.
7,000.
So that's a good baseline of just cardio.
Yeah. Now to take that to take that a stage further, and I'm definitely into this, which is that zone 2 training or Maffetone method, or what I call like true aerobics. So we talked about obviously the different types of muscle tissue, the slow twitch, fast twitch, or type 1, type 2.
2B, 2X.
So
2B, 2X, I think.
It's 2A, 2X.
We're going to fight.
They used to call it 2B, but this is stupid. Anyway, technical stuff. But anyway,
it is.
2B is only for animals, 2X is for humans.
Interesting.
You don't actually have technically 2B. I used to say it as well. A lot of even research.
No,
2B.
I mean literally, like personal training books still say 2B.
Yeah, so technically it's 2X.
Those guys are wrong. We got to call up NASM and ACE.
It's just a little evolution.
Tear down the establishment.
Semantics. It's the effects are the same. But anyway, look, So. But the main thing is half the muscle in your body is type 1, the other half is type 2 or slow twitch, fast twitch. So the fast twitch is for strength, for explosiveness, for power, for speed, and the type 1 is for endurance. So I always think of it, it's like having, say you've got 2 cars in your garage. One is a Ferrari, which is
obviously
brilliant for speeding around the place, getting somewhere fast.
Yeah.
But if you want to go for a long drive for hours, you're going to take
not
the Prius.
Most efficient. Yeah, right. Or the Tesla.
Even better.
Why'd you go to a Prius?
Well, it just trying to.
It's more economical for the average listener. You're right.
Analogy. But anyway,
don't want to be an elitist.
So you're going to have a car that may not be as quick in terms of acceleration and top speed, but it's going to go long distances, and that's. If you think it from an evolutionary perspective, and this is a great way to think about things, and I often go back to this to check things. So we've evolved as hunter-gatherers.
Sure.
So evolutionary, we want to be able to walk around all day at a slow but reasonable pace, and have endless stamina for that. And then we want quick bouts of like explosiveness. So we got to suddenly move a rock or
escape a saber-toothed tiger.
Escape a predator or whatever. So we need both, almost like, again, I'm going to jump from the Prius to the Ferrari and back again.
And then I got to walk 8 miles to go get water.
Exactly, yeah. So
I think if we're on the metaphor train, I'd like to offer one. We don't want to be the Ferrari or the Prius. We might want to be the Tesla.
The best of everything.
Fast acceleration, crazy speed, but also, I got that electric power.
Well, you still got to stop and do your quick
no. This is a custom Prius that has the Tesla, biggest battery ever. Or sorry, the custom Tesla, You don't have to recharge. The car metaphor is going to run out eventually because everything's going to need power of some sort. But just like us, you got to eat, though.
In the future, this will be so deep, people will be like, what? Because it's all be these self-driving electric.
No, they're just going to be sitting in a dark room with goggles on, living through an avatar.
Oh, scary. Okay. Ready Player One. Okay.
I don't like that movie for that exact reason. Spielberg, shut it down. Okay, so that's very good to know. Exercise, man.
Yeah, let me finish off the point about that Zone 2
Sorry,
training.
I forgot where we're going.
I know, we kind of
my brain
a bit. Because, your original question was, and I probably went off on a bit of a tangent there, but it's just don't be stagnant is my number one. But then if you want to get a little bit, a bit of a hack, if you like, or to really optimize the aerobic zone and that health, because you get huge metabolic health benefits from true aerobics. So what is this Zone 2, Maffetone, all that kind of stuff? And I'm sure we've talked about it before, but that's where you're going just at the pace where you're still using fat as energy, breaking down into fatty acids, and with oxygen, so that's hence aerobic. So with oxygen, you break that down into energy. Now, once you're going a little bit too fast or too much strain, then you cannot convert that fat and break it down into fatty acids and using oxygen at fast enough a rate. So then it switches to the other energy system, which is using sugar or stored sugar as glycogen in the muscle and liver. So two totally different energy systems, and we want to optimize both.
Yeah. Now, when we're talking about burning fat for fuel, are you talking about I'm going to burn fat off of my waist, or this is like lipids in the blood that's floating around?
Well, both, but essentially, you could have dietary fat that you're absorbing, but generally it's fat from the body,
Interesting.
Yeah, it's using fat from the body, breaking that down, and using that as energy. And if you think about it, even from a storage perspective, we have maybe 3 hours of exercise in glycogen, because you've got a little bit of glycogen in the muscle, a little bit in the liver, that's it. And if you don't consume it, you're going to run out.
Yeah.
So marathon runners and
they'll get their goo.
They hit the wall.
Yeah.
Because if you're training at a pretty high intensity level for over 2 hours, you'll run out of glycogen. And that's why they're trying to take these sugary drinks. Because they've run out. Otherwise, you hit the wall and you feel like, death warmed up. Whereas if you're using fat as energy, and if you look at the fat storage, even if you're very lean, you've got days of energy that you can just keep going endlessly.
Yeah.
So it's an incredible amount.
We just kind of almost have to look at it. It's like you have two different energy sources. You have two different engines. Just run them both and make sure that they're both running efficiently and they're in an optimal place.
And going back to so you'll see people even in their 80s and they can hike for hours and be very really
they
awesome
rip
from a
past me on the hikes.
Exactly.
Make me look stupid.
So, and again, that goes back to that point. We don't lose that type 1 muscle tissue, and we've got that endless energy. So you could keep that going very effectively. But if you want to optimize it from a health perspective, longevity perspective, then, that's Zone 2. And you got to work it out. So I know Dr. Peter T goes into more detail, but I think that Maffetone method for most people is at very least a great starting point. I think it works very well, where it's just 180 minus your age. So if you're looking at your heart rate and you've got a monitor, could be a little watch or a strap or whatever. So for me, now that I'm 50, it's very easy math. I just 180 minus 50, so I could keep my heart rate close to 130, but not over it.
Yeah.
So anywhere between 115 to 130 is what I try to do. So sort of like a fast walk pace.
Yeah.
And that will just optimize that energy system and give you, and if you can do that, this is anecdotal, it's not, I haven't seen any research on it, but when I do that in the morning, even 20 minutes, my stamina and energy throughout the day is superb.
Yeah.
I just feel fantastic. And I would really say to people, try it. Try it at home. Just do 20 minutes, get that zone that I'm talking about, and just see how your energy is throughout the day.
Yeah, something I'd also add is I know you generally, and I recommend the elliptical for this because it's really easy to control your pace and your heart rate, and it's going to be a lot less brutal on your joints. You know, I know a lot of people like to go for a light jog. You can kind of reach that same heart rate, but just something to keep in mind. You know, that can be a lot of beat down on your joints if you're running, especially on pavement and stuff. So.
Yeah. So cycling could be
I love the elliptical, cycling.
Cycling, elliptical, swimming.
Yeah.
So there's a million ways to do it.
Low impact can be good though.
Yeah. I suspect that, again, the joint issues and stuff that we're suffering from is just all around health. I think nutrition plays a role. Because I default going back to hunter-gatherers. I mean, we're sort of meant to walk around for...
Oh, yeah. I just don't know if we're meant to walk around on concrete.
On pavement, yeah.
That's what mostly am trying to point out, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. So that's, if you want to optimize, and Peter Attia says, okay, if you really want to get your zone 2 and get that whole aerobic zone, 45 minutes 4 times a week is absolute peak level optimum.
You just got to build like a custom elliptical, put your laptop on it, get a little headset, take some Zoom meetings, put a little green screen behind you.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, it's really not that difficult. And if you can make it, I always focus on trying to get things that people like and enjoy, obviously. Right. So if you like swimming or cycling or whatever, great. Or make it so that you don't feel like it's a waste of time. So listen to an audio book, a podcast. You can work while you're on an elliptical or whatever. But because to me, it's still a lot of, I mean, that's still, 3 hours a week?
Yeah.
So when I always do factor that in. So if I want a really good, productive, long life, if you say, okay, here's the great way to do it, and you're 80 hours doing, crazy things, and in order to reach that, and you've hardly any life left over for the things that you want to do, well, then it's a big trade-off. Whereas if it's something that I try to get, like I said, with the Zone 2, get it to the point that you don't feel you're wasting any time. So there's other things that you're doing while you're doing it, or there's things that you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Then it's not eating into your time. And then the only thing that's eating into your time is 15-minute workouts a few times a week, less than an hour a week. So I think net, less than 1 hour a week can give you a tremendous quality of life and a long, healthy, happy life.
That's great.
So that's all that's actually required.
I think that's very applicable information too.
Yeah.
You start putting that into your routine today.
Because most people will say, I don't have time.
Yeah, come on.
We do have a finite amount of time.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, if you could have that hour playing with your kids, I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, I do get it. But if I'm saying it's less than an hour a week...
Well, hey, even playing with your kids, man, go out and kick that soccer ball.
Exactly, yeah.
Take your kid on a bike ride,
Exactly. So there's a lot of...
figure out how to put that into your lifestyle.
Yeah, and it's got to be different for everybody. But I don't see any reason why it can't be done like that.
That's great. Yeah. Well, I know we could talk about exercise and diet forever. And the reason is because it's super important, and it does directly affect everything that we were talking about, especially what, Peter Attia outlines as, the biggest killers. But let's get into the cognitive health place a little bit. I think people fear, as they age, not being quite as sharp mentally. And then, of course, there are, things to really consider, like Alzheimer's, dementia, these degenerative disorders. So what can we do? We can talk about, lifestyle things, exercise, diet, even supplementation can be an interesting thing with nootropics and stuff. But takeaway, you have the mic and the floor. So what do you want to talk about with, cognitive and even, mental health?
Yeah, well, it's hard not to go back to exercise.
I know, it's almost like
taking that off the table, but and again,
absolutely no conversation
about
it.
Every cognitive factor, and exercise, of course, is going to play a huge role. And nutrition, I mean, some people even nickname Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes because of the blood sugar thing. So these things are going to play a big role. But let's just say, okay, we're doing all that. Is there other
absolutely.
things?
There you go.
Okay, so the big one that jumps out at me, when I think about it, is going to be, so this you could say is a supplement, although it very much could be nutrition, is your consumption of EPA and DHA.
Ooh.
Fish oil, omega-3.
Ooh.
Huge. And actually on that point, because this is Dr. Rhonda Patrick, she always quotes this.
We love
Rhonda. But when they look at rates of, so they look at the what's called the omega-3 index. Mm-hmm. So it's a great test worth getting. And this will tell you your percentage of omega-3 compared to I think it's omega-3 to omega-6. Or I could be wrong on that, which is terrible. I should know that. But this omega-3 index is essentially it's how much omega-3 is in your system, EPA and DHA. And when they look at the different segments, so you've got the let's say the bottom 25% compared to the top 25%, the difference of health and longevity is off the charts. So, for instance, we know that smoking is not the healthiest pastime.
Come on,
right?
Don't tell me that.
So,
no.
Although recently, anyway, I've heard something weird about how caffeine can offset. Anyway.
No smoking.
No
smoking. Don't do it.
Definitely don't do it.
It's not cool.
So, but if you're on the lowest level of that omega-3 index compared to the highest, that has a bigger impact than smoking, which is huge. So in other words, if you smoke and you take a lot of the omega-3,
you're healthier than someone that takes lower amounts.
You're healthier than someone who's got a low
doesn't smoke
and doesn't smoke.
Dang.
That's huge. Now look, it's correlation, whatever, but that's huge. That is huge. Yeah. So I absolutely think, now of course you can do this through nutrition. I know I'm not allowed to talk about nutrition right now.
Look,
you put me
again,
I'm only joking,
your show.
Yeah, no, I'm joking. But yeah, I mean, obviously taking salmon, mackerel, herring, sardines, high in EPA, DHA. Now, you may think, oh, well, I get a lot of omega-3 from flax seeds or something like that. Which is alpha-linolenic acid.
Yeah, they're thinking wrong.
Which some of it can be converted to EPA, DHA, but the conversion process is not great.
Yeah, exactly.
So you'd need to take a large amount, and you want to make sure that you're super healthy in converting it. But just look, get the omega-3 index test. You'll know.
Yeah.
It takes all that kind of thing out of it. Personally, I take the fish oil supplements.
Same. What do you do, like 3 grams a day?
I aim for 3 grams of EPA, DHA.
Yep.
That's some people might think that's on the higher side, but then when I look at every study, that's the amount they use. Yeah. So that's a big thing that I notice is people go, oh, well, this is good, and then they're taking something that's not even close to the amount that they take in the studies.
Well, I mean, and we know, like, I mean, even just the reduction in, chronic inflammation is so important, and like when you're looking at like atherosclerosis and like heart disease and all this stuff, I mean, if you're just able to get your inflammation down, like that alone is going to have such an impact on your health.
Yeah. And bringing it back to the mental health,
please.
There's so many studies showing, for instance, that has almost as good as, and again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not whatever, but
I am.
Some of these studies have shown that omega-3 intake for mild to moderate depression is just as good as some of the medications.
Wow.
So very, very effective in terms of an antidepressant.
Interesting. Anecdotally speaking, I've been taking it for a couple of months now, and I've actually noticed, I can't necessarily isolate that factor, but I have noticed
mood levels
a little bit different.
Yeah. And obviously
Increased.
It's brilliant for the muscle, great for
you're telling me, baby.
For recovery of the muscle, because again, the whole inflammatory response, like inflammation is a good thing.
Yes.
But low-grade chronic inflammation is not good.
Nope.
So you want an inflammatory response. That's part of the repair process.
Yeah, and
you want it to come back down again. And the omega-3 helps that process tremendously.
Does it prevent muscle breakdown and protein synthesis?
Does it prevent muscle breakdown?
Because I know it obviously has a lot to do with recovery. Are you able to isolate why?
I just don't want to
or we can pretend I never asked
that. I don't want to say something that I'm not. I definitely know it helps with the protein muscle synthesis.
Okay.
The breakdown.
Not sure.
I'm I would guess yes. If you just asked me, I would probably say yes. I just haven't seen specific.
We can also refer people to research that we find and anything else you have.
We're gonna go. Yeah, I'm gonna go deep into this. That's probably a whole separate one.
Oh yeah, we're just armchair experting it right now, but
but incredible. And DHA in particular is incredible for the brain. Absolutely incredible for all cognitive functions. Amazing. So. Yeah, I mean, again, if you're listening to this, and I just want to summarize steps for people to do and to take to have incredible longevity, and that is going to be one of my points. So again, the resistance training, high protein, obviously don't be stagnant, get some of that
cardio.
zone 2 training in, and then the omega-3.
Yeah.
Wow, if you did all 4 of those, I think you're in for an incredible life.
Seriously.
Yeah. Really good quality of life, and you're going to avoid all of the pitfalls. So I think just those 4 points I think would really put you on the right track.
I agree.
There are, of course, lots of other things we could talk about. Actually, because when you were saying, okay, you can't talk about the exercise and nutrition.
I'm going to lift that.
No. But
talk about it.
It's good because it forces me to talk about the other things.
I know, yeah.
Another big thing that comes up in the research all the time is social interaction.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Huge. So of course, other things like sleep and sleep quality, huge, very, very important. Stress management, hugely important. Social interaction, and we've obviously just come out of the.
We learned this the hard way, man. We learned it the hard way.
Lockdowns and all that sort of thing.
Depression, suicide is through the roof.
Yeah, not good
higher than ever.
I mean, I always think about it like, if you're really bad, you do bad things, they put you in jail. And if you're still really bad and you do bad things in jail, what do?
They isolate you.
Yeah, isolation.
And it's not because it's good. It's not. You're not going to come out with stronger character or wanting to love people. Like
unless you're a very
it breaks you
awesome
down.
person that can get deep into meditation and do something spectacular.
Which you probably could. We should put you in solitary confinement and see what happens.
I thrive off human interaction.
No, it's huge. Like quality friends, quality interactions, community.
Yeah.
Being around people that love and support you and that you do the same for. It's huge.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And that, again, all the blue zones, that's probably one of the biggest factors.
Absolutely.
Is the community and human interaction.
And hey, you know what? A lot of people find that in a gym.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Not to be cheesy, but I mean, seriously, even coming into a place like Resistance, you have social interaction. You get to work out with the same people every day and have a little bit of relationship building. And that's so fun. I mean, so many people they build community out of the gym. And so it's like you're really knocking out 2 birds with 1 stone there.
Yeah.
And that's just one example of where you can, find that.
Yeah, and to throw in a little bit of research in there, when people work out together, it reduces corticosterol, which is a stress hormone, so they can perform better. So they did these studies with runners in particular, because when you run in a group, you can perform much better than on your own.
Is it like a competition kind of thing?
No, I think it goes back to you feel safer because it's like a tribal thing. So you're in a group of people, so your stress levels kind of decrease.
Crazy.
Because again, if you think as hunter-gatherers, because genetically, you've got to remember, we're still like that. Genetics take thousands of years to change. So from that perspective, when you're in a group, like even if you think of animals as a herd of whatever going together, they're going to feel much safer than on their own.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's a genetic component that's built in that you don't want to be on your own because you're going to get eaten by a tiger
or a saber-toothed tiger.
Even though it's unlikely today in LA, but
skewered by a mammoth tusk.
Though you could get a shark, you could get a mountain lion. It happens.
Hey, man.
But it's few and far between nowadays.
But
genetically, I just think we're
social creatures.
We are social creatures for sure.
I think that's a great way to end it. And recapping: resistance training, increase protein intake, get your cardio, go walk, move, play with your kids, kick a soccer ball, ride a bike, have healthy social interactions. And there was one more.
Omega-3.
Omega-3.
There you go.
Take your omega-3. Obviously, eat it in whole foods, but also supplement your DHA, EPA.
Sounds good.
Sounds like a good formula to me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So it's working so far for me at 50.
We'll check in at 51. We'll see how you're doing.
I did a few little tests, and I got my health score up to 100, and I'm in the top 1%, and that's of all age groups, so
yes.
It's not too bad.
I know, yeah.
So that's pretty good. And my
we got the 3D body scanner, and he's over there.
Again, I'm in the top peaking. Of people in their 20s on the strength scores and all these things. So
including me.
Doing pretty good. I can do a few things here and there. And I'm really not, like I said, I exercise less than most of the clients. I'm not a fanatical thing that I'm so I like to kind of get that point across, because a lot of people immediately think, oh, well, you're just, doing these crazy things. And while I did some crazy diets, in general, what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, anybody could do it. Absolutely anybody. Sorry, I mean, there's people that can't for whatever reasons.
Sure.
But
obviously, disability.
The vast majority of people can do this for sure, and it's not hard. It's just a question of we're in this unhealthy environment that works against us. So you got to create your own little mini environment to make that possible.
Absolutely.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, guys, go exercise, eat well, make meaningful, deep relationships.
Yeah, I know.
And live well.
And we'll see if I'm doing another podcast when I hit 100. We'll see.
All right, yeah. All right, deal.
Awesome.
I'll be here. All right, see you guys.
See you.